Professor Kumria has, I guess, had to go. Professor Goenka, editor and members of the editorial team, professors and students. Given what your principal said, let me start by saying the internships are all, we have a website and internship and YP program, it's open to everybody. Internship you can apply at any time. So it's a continuing process. People can pick you up, but you have to apply. Without that, there's nothing. You have to go to the website, you have to fill in whatever is required, then only we can proceed. Yeah. The second thing I want to, given what your principal said, the last time I spoke was last week to another group like yours, and if I remember, there was only one girl who yawned during the speech. I hope you can beat that record. Okay, so as forewarned, when I start speaking, I tend to speak too much. So let me go right into it, because otherwise that record you will break. Okay, how does this work? It's not moving. Yeah, can't say. Just touching this?
Yes.
Okay. So basically, what I'm going to do is give you, two. I'm going to break it up into two parts, but the goal is clear. So when we focus on economic for the future, we talk about average income or per capita GDP. They are used interchangeably, and they are more or less the same thing. And what our goal is, we are currently what is called a low middle income country, and within 12 years we hope to become a upper middle income country, and by 2047 a high income country. So when that Viksit Bharat, people have different definitions, but I am a macroeconomist. I have a very precise definition. These definitions are taken from the World Bank. They are numbers. People will tell you developed country involves so many other things. That's impossible to define, though I will give you an idea of what I am talking about entails at the end of the thing. So that is the goal we have, and how do we achieve that? In one sentence which I like to give, of which every word is very important, and I will try to spell out what it means in detail. Sustained, fast, inclusive growth. If you miss out any of those words, it doesn't work. This is based on the history of growth across countries. So basically, the first part of my talk, I'm going to give you an idea which is very important, which is that what is it, this change in planning? Till 2014 we had planning, we had a planning commission that was abolished in 2014, and a Niti Aayog was set up. And what does that entail? I think you all need to know what is the change which has happened in the approach to how we think about development. So first part is going to be that, a little bit technical. I'll try to make it as simple as possible. So that is the first part, the kind of the strategy of economic policy and institutional reform, which is the new thing, as the past thing was planning. Okay? And then I will look at future trends and developments, again very important for the medium long term, something which if you pick up and if I'm right, you should remember for the future. They will help you think about the world, what is going on into the future. So these are the two parts I'm going to talk about, where I look at trends, developments, global and Indian, look at weakness and how to turn it into opportunity, and women play one of the important roles in that. The other is skilling. Okay? And then at the end I will look at the projections which I start with, which the per capita, what's going to happen, what are the numbers look like, and the connected social indicators. And again, there's a different way in which I look at it from many other people, which may be of some interest to people who do economics and who will continue to do them. So what is the change? So this is the new thing. Let me start with planning. We had what is called socialist planning, Every 5 years, we would draw up a plan of the whole economy, sectors, this, that, numbers, everything going down, involve the states, etc. And then the plan was out there, but we made allocations from the budget related to the plan. And that was all the planning was there. The new approach is that the government, the market, private sector, NGOs have their own role. So what is the role of the government and the private sector? That is the key change. Okay, from planning, government deciding everything, telling everybody what to do. Okay, so what we call it a indic market economy. So the role of government. So indic. Why do we call it indic market economy? To distinguish it from the US way of doing it and the European. But the key word here is market economy. But we look at it much more carefully in terms of competitiveness versus monopoly, complete and efficient markets. This is a technical one. If you don't understand, just forget it. You may get an idea as I go along. And information barriers. So why is this important and connected with INDIC? These two particularly, because in US, they don't even think about these issues because they don't have this problem. Okay, in the US, and they have a different approach that market will take care of everything, okay, by itself, and it's better than government. Government better stay out. EU has some selective interventions which are connected with welfare. We will talk a little bit about welfare, but they also don't focus on these things. We focus all the time. As perhaps the only macroeconomist in government who looks at everything, this is what I focus on. Are there problems in the market? Are there missing markets? And I'll give you some ideas. Skills is one of the problems which I look at. And the information barriers. In the developed economy like US or EU, they assume information is all there. But we have fundamental problems with information. So that's a focus which we focus on. So how does that, where does the role in government come in? So role of government is firstly this market environment which I'm talking about, the first part, that make sure things are working properly, and if they are not, what government should create that environment in which markets function efficiently. Okay. The second part is what I've said there. First, the public good provision and regulation of externalities. This is again, as I said, I warned you a little bit of technical here, then we'll get more interesting hopefully. So public goods, they are well defined in public economics. That's why I was very happy that you have a professor who's recently joined you on public economics. There's a formal definition of public goods. I won't go into technical thing, but there is an economics behind it. Okay, so it is the government's job to regulate infrastructure, for example, or the financial sector. That all comes from public economics. Why is it that we need to regulate infrastructure? You heard of the RBI, the Reserve Bank of India, the SEBI. Those are all regulatory institutions which we have set up deliberately because we know there are issues here. Okay, that's the broad thing you need to remember. And then welfare transfers and empowerment. This welfare is there in Europe. I told you that some things we are similar, but what we focus much more on is empowerment. I'll give you a little idea of that. And the idea, particularly in the last 10 years, has been to empower every group in every geography. To the extent that it's not just economics, it is socially, it's sports, it is culture, everything. So if you are culture minded, you're not interested in economics, we must empower you to be able to do whatever you're good at. Okay? After that, it's your job. I mean, ours is to create the environment, okay, to empower everybody, every group. And then in this framework, the private sector is the one which will compete, innovate and invest. So you create the environment and then the private sector has to do the rest. There's also a role for NGOs, I don't have the time, but the third element of this is non-government organizations who have their own social role. And the way to think of it is government is a bureaucracy. It doesn't deal humanely with people. They cannot. You may start doing it, but after 10 years or 5 years, they all become bureaucratic. So the the NGOs have an important role where things have to go down to the ground in the community, where there's a disabled person or something. So the government can only provide money. They are not good at actually supporting such types of, and the NGOs can play a very important role there. Okay. So what is the environment we have created is important. I'll give you some idea and then I'll show you the results. Your principal mentioned poverty, etc. I want to give you results which is very, very important for you to know, to cut the I was going to use a word which starts with C, but I won't. Okay, so I was, in the 91 reforms, I was intimately part of it. Your introducer kindly mentioned some things. So there what we focused on, because the whole structure, the government controlled everything. Okay, that is where the planning. Remember what I said about planning? So everybody wanted to control everything. So government bureaucrats, government whoever thought they knew everything. They planned for everything and they control everything. That is being thrown out starting from 91. But that structure was so intense, it was everywhere. So what we did was, in 91 we took up certain important elements of it. Product markets and the financial sector connected with it, right? What does that mean? So you're liberalizing investment in everything, from paper to your computers you use, your cell phone, whatever. Cell phones weren't there at that time, important, but whatever. Okay, refrigerators, chairs, whatever. You try to control everything. Okay, so what we did was we first liberalized the product markets, the kind of things I'm telling you, and the financial thing to go with it. Why? Because investment is the key driver of growth. So you need finance. Okay, so you had to liberalize the finance market so that they would finance investments which were productive and profitable. Okay. So in the last 10 years we have looked at where the gaps is, and one of them is the factor markets. How many of you are all economists, but how many of you know the general term factor markets? Anybody? Professors? आप बताइए. Give me an example of a factor market. There are four basic. Right, labor market, capital market. They probably don't feel confident. You must have taught them. Okay, so factor market, labor market. So 4 labor codes have been developed. They are in process. I again don't go. So public sector reform, that was missing. Okay, we stopped using public sector as a primary instrument of development, but it has not been reformed. So that has been the efforts. And then every product which was left, just to give you 2 important examples, atomic energy and space. There were many others. Simple things like mapping was not allowed, drones, etc. All those have been liberalized systematically. And services. Okay. Then the second most important element is institutional reform, what we call, okay, which is like the IBC. There's a setting up of a monetary policy committee, GST. I'll say a little bit resource auction. These are institutional things. Okay, these are not policies. So institutions, according to an economist who won the Nobel Prize, are the laws and rules which formal and informal which determine actions. Okay. We think of institutions as a body, like a university is an institution, but actually it's the rules, okay, which are put forward. So what is GST? GST was the biggest constitutional reform in the economic area in 75 years of independence. The interesting thing is that for me as an economist, that the persons who made the constitution actually built a very good economic structure into it, except for this one thing. So what is this one thing? It was they didn't realize that if you give each state the power to tax products, it will fragment the market. So if you are in, let's say, Haryana, which has a completely different tax structure from Punjab and from UP, things cannot move easily across the border. So what the GST does is it unifies the indirect taxes, so that there's completely free movement between states. So it unifies the market. That's how economists think of it. A unified market we were missing. We have this huge population, but we didn't have a unified market. So it's a very, very important constitutional change. Bureaucratic reforms you'll hear a lot about, but the way to think of it is they are vested interests. Your professor raised the issue, why don't things happen? They are huge vested interests. I can talk about hundreds of them. I've been personally involved. For example, tax reform was one of the things I did in the 90s, in that 91's reforms. And you cannot imagine the kind of reasons and things they come up with. People think that these bureaucrats just have that, but they have very intelligent arguments. When it depends on their interests, they don't just say stupid things. They come up with good arguments. And unless you properly analyze and are ready to answer those arguments, the top leaders say, no, you haven't told me these fellows are saying the right thing, chalo kuch na karo. Okay? So this is the practical thing which your principal referred to. So vested interest. So what the important point here I'm making is, how do you overcome? One of the things which have been seen to digitize it. So that if everything is a file, it goes to a whole bureaucracy. If you digitize it and let the people come in a way not really over their head, but into the digital economy, that is one way. Social welfare reforms. I mentioned public goods. Many studies, World Bank studies have shown that the distribution of public goods was uneven. That in fact, the whole point of it is that everybody should get it. The most important public good which you are aware of is highways and roads. Okay? Why is it called a public good? Okay, let me not go into it. I've already spent a lot of time on this to explain. So things like that, rural-urban differences. This method of moving is a little unusual for me, but that's okay. Okay, so Antyodaya empowerment. This has two parts. This is the second part, inclusion. Remember the inclusion? Fast sustained growth was the first part I told you. That is a way to get fast sustained growth. This is about the second part, which is inclusion. And there we have standard things which says, okay, you must have access to which these things are what we call quasi-public goods. They are kind of public goods, but they are not. That's why I mentioned that. So basic food, fuel, water, sanitation, access to electricity, housing, and so on. So the idea is the basic needs, once they are fulfilled, then people can, you already, in your families, all these basic needs are met. So you can think of getting educated, doing new things, big things, right? So we need to empower them. That's the new stuff which we are thinking of and doing. It's not just a matter of just giving people money every year for, tens of years. It is to empower them so then they can do it on their own. So the idea is not to give, just to take an example, I'm not saying things are perfect, but electricity, they have to have access. The electricity must reach the village. It must be available. But you don't keep giving an electricity subsidy forever. Okay? That's the difference between empowerment and giving subsidies. Okay? So you empower, and the idea is everything. So the PM has been talking about women, youth, performers. It's okay. You may say, oh, this is a political slogan. Yes, they are political slogans, but it's all connected. When we talk about development, as long as the party or government is doing the right thing, doesn't matter what they say, and they deserve the credit if they do the stuff. Okay? So financial access has been done, education. There is an incredible program called Diksha, which if I have time later, I'll tell you, the job skills. For a long time I have been talking, you heard that I directed an institute called ICRIER for a while. What I said was that they must have basic education and job skills. The mass of people, not you will find your jobs, you're looking for good things, but there is a mass of people. The incredible story is roughly 50% of the people, children at the end of primary education cannot read. They had primary education, but they cannot read. 50%. Nobody talks about it. Nobody talked about it for 75 years. Earlier it must have been 75%. This is 75 years of independence. So that's the second lesson. You must be clearly defined. You must understand what the real problem is. The Education Act, I opposed it for the reason that it was a bureaucratic act. Okay, they were just looking at the surface. They were not looking at the problem. Okay? So again, if people are interested in education, I'll go into it, and I must speed up. And entrepreneurship, startup, until innovation, it's a big, great program. Social sector, I told you that social sector joint NGO government initiative, they are very important in the gaps in society because of this bureaucratic problem. Their intentions don't matter. The bureaucracies always become rigid. Okay, so humans keep changing. Okay, so you need NGOs who are sensitive to these changes, human type of things. Okay, they're very important for that. Okay.
I was like, if you need help.
No, I just keep typing. If I have to go back, I'll be stuck, but that's okay. Yeah. Okay. So what you can say, okay, you're saying you're doing all these things for 10 years, but there's poverty, unemployment, etc., etc. So I just want to give you some numbers. These are from PLFS survey. There used to be a different survey. A lot of people you'll find connecting. I don't like to connect because there's hundreds of questions can raise. You can do it in 10 different ways. Somebody will say you're wrong, I'm right, etc. So I just take from 2017-18 to 22-23. That's about 7 years of data. And very simply, do you have a pointer here? No. Okay. So I will point there. So you see these two graphs. It's all right. That orange graph is what is called current weekly status. That is the best measure we have of number of jobs created. And you can see clearly that it's been on a rising trend. That solid line is the trend. Okay, that's the big impression I want to leave with you. So it's very clear. This measures what is called the worker population ratio, the employed people divided by population. So the rising trend means that the number of jobs are rising faster than the population. Okay, the working age population. Okay, so all these statements about how less and less jobs are just wrong. Okay, simple point here. Okay? The second part is that that upper thing is less accurate, but we have more data on it. And I want to just leave you, because that's some of the other things you will always hear, with some numbers. I'll just read them out. The table is there to just show you that, one has looked at all the data. It's not all from the air. So what does it show? I want to make 2 points. So as I said, the worker population growth rate by the bottom thing is about 3.3% per annum in this period, and that is 3.7. But I'm not taking the 3.7, but we have to do it for wage, because we have more detailed information on that upper, whatever way we do it. Okay. So what we do is that you divide it into regular workers, casual workers, and self-employed. Okay. And we look at the real wage. Okay, you take the nominal wage, which is there in the surveys, divided by some deflator. Okay, that is what we call a real wage. Whatever we're talking about, GDP or something, is divided by a deflator to get you the real. Okay, especially when you want to see a trend over time. Okay, so what does that show? It's actually quite amazing. The fastest growth in real wages has been among casual workers over this period. You heard of the concept of trickle down? Yes. This is the opposite. You think that salaried workers are better class workers, their wages will rise the fastest? No, they are the slowest. You can ask me why later. They are growing only at 0.6% per annum. And then in the middle are self-employed, which is a very broad mix, but even they income is rising by about 3.1% per annum, okay, which is quite close to the casual. So salaried are the worst off. You can call this trickle up. It's not trickle down. You should laugh when people say trickle up, trickle down. Okay, next one. Poverty. So it just turns out this Sunday, you are very timely. You'll be the first first students to know what is happening to poverty. So I've given you the latest data here and really just give you an idea of what it is. So this was data came out on Sunday. One of my colleagues who we did a paper with in 21-22, which is in the IMF working series, I'll just tell you. So what does the result show? Look at that 22-3 line. It's showing that there are two measures of poverty which we use. Actually, we've just been using the top one, absolute poverty. Okay, we call it 1.9%. $1.9 in 2011. They have shifted it to 217. They call it 2.2 or something. Doesn't matter. Roughly, it's the same thing. Okay. So what we show is that poverty over these 10, 11 years has declined from 12% to 2%. And if look at that second portion there. I've given you an average. That is from our paper. BBV is Bhalla, Bhasin and Virmani. This is a paper published in IMF working papers. We are almost spot on. We had predicted this in 20 something. Okay, about 3 years ago. So poverty has gone down. But the interesting one is the higher level poverty, which we've not used so far, which is called the $3.2 line. That has fallen drastically from 53.6% to 21%. That's a huge, huge change. Many reasons for it we can discuss if you're interested. I don't want to bore you with too much data, but this is the interesting thing. Okay, let me leave this side. So this is a very important thing. The impression that poverty is still there is wrong. Let me be very strong about it. Because there is an adjusted poverty which we invented in a way in our paper, which was to take account. You would think they take account. No, all these numbers are based just on the money they spend. Okay, they do a survey of the whole population, the number of rupees you spend. What we did was we said there are some in-kind transfers like food. If you give free food, there's no money involved. Those were not accounted in this. So what we did for the first time in India and probably in the world is to take account of in-kind transfers and show what the poverty implications are. So what roughly they showed was that poverty is low by at least 1% if you account for just the food. Okay? So you can say that what we usually talk about absolute poverty is over. You understand what I'm saying? You should go out and assert this. You will be the first. The poverty is gone according to the way we measure. We actually then recommend, okay, let's move to the other poverty line because we are now a lower middle income country. That was used to be for poor countries. We are no longer a poor country. Let's be clear about this. We are no longer a poor country. Everybody keeps complaining about poverty. Okay? And then there is something which was invented. Everybody was unhappy with the poverty numbers, etc., which I gave you earlier. So they invented something called multipliers. It's fine. So what I'm showing here is over a slightly different period, whatever. Let me move on. But according to this multi-dimensional poverty index, the Niti Aayog, this is not my numbers. I cannot, as a professional, I don't claim this thing. I'm just telling you that Niti has estimated that multi-dimensional poverty has also gone down from 24.9% in 13-14, so over the 10 years, to 11.3. Okay, so that is kind of in between our measure of 1.9 and the other one. Remember, it was almost 0 and 20. Half of that is roughly 11. Okay. Okay. Now, actually, the more interesting. So that is just the record. Okay. Now, some more interesting stuff for those who are internationally minded. I don't know how many of you read about the world. Any of you have any interest in the global? The students. Tell me. Any of you, national events, how many of you are interested in national stuff? Not too many. You're just trying to pass your thing. Good. Anyway, so I was glad that there's an editorial team. Maybe they will ask me some good questions. I look forward to it. Okay, so very quickly, these are the trends which I believe will determine what happens over the next 5-10 years. This is a personal view. Some of these things will overlap with the government's view, not everything. Okay? So one is demography, India and the world. This is a very important thing I told you, which will stay with you for a long time. You must understand it. Other is digitization and internet and hybrid systems. Again, this is going to be there for a long time. I'll give you a little better idea. Then there's climate change, which everybody talks about. So I have actually put it in appendix. I'm sure I'll run out of time. Geopolitics of oil. These two are connected for us. I'll leave it for the time following again if you have question. Aggression and threat of war. So the idea here is there are certain threats we have, but we must convert them into opportunities. So oil prices and energy issues are always a problem for us. So we are trying to convert it into an opportunity by going solar. Okay, that's the basic idea you should understand. And similarly with aggression. We cannot control what the northern neighbor does. They attacked us in 2019, but can we take advantage of it? Well, we have to defend ourselves, so why not create a defense industry? Okay, which means there will be more GDP, employment, etc. And the third one which I'm going to talk about is the supply chain monopoly risk which the world is facing and trying to de-risk, diversify, which we can take an opportunity of. Again, at least in the next 5-10 years, this is an opportunity for us and presumably for all of you if you choose to take it. So quickly the two weaknesses which I may not have enough time, but I want to mention them. One is skilling. I already mentioned the education problem. This is very important. The way I look at it, I am responsible in NITI for thinking about skilling. Okay, so the way I look at it, you have to have basic education first. Again, I'm not talking about people like you and me and my children. I have to be responsible for those 70% who are in the rural areas. Okay, so they must have the skill, they must have the basic education. If they cannot read, what will they do? Okay, there's no point talking about high school and BAs and MAs for them. Okay, the guys who are bright, girls who are bright will get it, but the mass will just stay there. And then female labor force participation. So both these things I look at weakness which we can turn into an opportunity. So if the labor force participation is women is low, there's a huge opportunity. If we can double that, there'll be a huge outpouring of economic activity. Okay, so my problem is how to do that, how to incentivize, how to find out what the problem is. Okay, agriculture you all heard of, and we can take it up, but manufacturing. So let me just go into the demography because it's very important. So the key point here is that the world share of working age population is what I have in these tables. There's a decline from 20 to 20 for the future. The past, many of these countries, the red means there's a decline in their share. The first column is the past, the second column is the future. The red lines you see, red rows, columns. High income countries like USA, EU, UK, Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, Canada, their working age population share in the world. Working age population are those who provide the workers, right? Is declining and will continue to decline. Then there is a set of upper middle income countries, China, Thailand, Mexico, Indonesia, Russia, which you could think of as potential competitors to us. And then we are at the bottom still. In that table, Vietnam and India. We are both lower middle income countries. Remember what I told you, we want to become upper middle income and then high income. Okay, so we are still here, we have to move to the next stage. Okay, so the key point here is that in the next, every one of these is going to lose working age. So we have this huge opportunity. We are the only country where the share of working age population will rise. That has implications for tens of things. I'm going to just spell out a few of them. This is a table you should remember. Okay. So one of the immediate thing is connected with the supply chain. So we have to use this opportunity where they want to de-risk. Okay, I'll show you what the risk is in this. But let's focus on manufacturing first. So we want to maximize manufacturing. We kind of missed the bus. Many countries in Southeast Asia had value added and employment manufacturing share go up quite high and then come down. Everybody comes down. But we kind of got stuck here. Okay, so we rode halfway, not halfway, 2/3, whatever, are stuck there. So the question is, can we use this opportunity which is provided by the global environment to raise our growth of manufacturing and therefore value-added employment. So, the opportunity is high-income developed countries. Our economies are complementary. They are the source of technology and FDI, largest manufacturing market for manufacturing. So all the opportunity, in my view, lies in those 5 economies. Okay, and that's where we have to focus, and we are focusing. So largest market for manufactured export. 2/3 of supply chains are led by MNCs, and these MNCs are based mostly in the US and some in UK. Again, this may seem like an abstract concept to you, but there is a close association between MNC FDI in a country and its imports of goods. Okay, so if you want to drive exports or drive investment or drive growth, these are all linked. That's the key point to understand. These are not arbitrary things. Okay, they are all linked together through this. So what we are doing is we missed out on this completely. We do not have any, till let's say 10 years ago, there were no MNC supply chains in India. None. So we are laying out the red carpet for a greenfield FDI, what we call Apple, Foxconn, etc. To show these numbers and compare with China. Till 5 years ago, everybody used to say China, RCEP, So I want to give you some numbers. Again, I'm sorry, I don't get convinced unless I see numbers. Many people get bored by numbers, but I can't help it. So let me quickly tell you. So we take these 5 economies, okay? You can see their names over there, and just let me read out the thing quickly, and some of it will stick. So these 5 countries or economies are the source of 60% of global FDI, which is 7 times China. Because China is nothing compared to them. They import 53% of world manufactured imports, which is 5 times China's import of manufacturing. Remember the big picture. 8 times, 5 times, you may not remember all the numbers. But just the 3 smallest of these, Japan, UK, Korea, constitute as large a market for foreign manufactured goods as China. It's an amazing thing. People just keep talking about China. They are not importing manufacturers. You're out of it. There's no use. So what is our strategy? Our strategy is to have FTAs with all these countries. We already have with Japan, ROK, UK one is almost done, but the key difficult ones are EU and USA, because USA is very hesitant given their domestic politics. Nothing to do with economics, but their politics. Now, the next point I want to make is to do with what is this de-risking issue. The issue is that one country has a monopoly of manufactured exports. Can you name the country? China, yeah. Okay, so here is the picture. Again, this is a picture. When you hear globalization, I want to leave you with this picture. I wish I had a pointer. But this first graph is the ratio of world exports to world GDP. Okay, is that clear? All total exports of the world, every country added up, and the total GDP of the world. That first rise is the period of globalization. See that huge steep rise? That is the globalization. When people keep talking about globalization, that's what they are talking about. Then you had the global financial crisis, and see what's happening. It's like on a downtrend. Okay? That is the deglobalization. So this is merchandise, what we call, you can think of goods, manufactured goods, including services. Okay? So the world is deglobalizing, but see what is happening to China's share of world exports of manufactured goods. Same thing. Okay? It keeps rising. See that red line? That is China. See the dotted line is the actual. Red is the thing. They overtook the 2 biggest exporters of merchandise goods were China, Germany and America. They overtook them in 2008. But the amazing thing is, look at the difference. The share is still rising when the whole world is kind of, you can say, going down. Not literally, but so what is going on here? This is what is going on. They have deliberately created manufacturing monopolies. They control, it used to be called the factory of the world. People didn't rise. They are actually the manufacturing monopoly. They control 40% of the exports of telecom, electronics, ADP. ADP is your computers and all, automatic data processing, right? That's huge. I have never in history seen such one country controlling so much. They control 70%. There's other numbers I've given you. You don't need to worry about them. But they control a very high share of world exports of many things. But the interesting one, which is in the news, I want to tell you, They control 70% of the market for the things in the ports, which they are the lifts which are used to transfer goods and services. I mean the containers, 70%. You know what's the problem with that? That lift can be controlled from China. Crane. They have a connection to the crane. So if they are fighting a war with you, they could just stop that crane or destroy whatever is lying there. Can you imagine? So this is what the de-risking is about. Okay? The US, EU and many other countries realize they have to de-risk. That is our opportunity. Okay? The de-risking, we want that you move these supply chains from China to India, and we have to create the environment which they'll happily come and do it. Okay. So that's one big story is going to happen. These companies are going to move. You will have jobs created. You should be out there if you want to work in manufacturing. Okay? You should also, by the way, just incidentally, because I'm not going to have time to talk about the skilling, is that in fact, it's a big opportunity. Electronics I mentioned. In Southeast Asia, the largest workforce in these three industries is women. Okay? So you can also generate skills. If you want to be an entrepreneur, you can go out there, make the rural women skilled and find them jobs in the new industries which will be coming. Or you can become a manager in these MNCs, whatever. I'm just giving you an example. Okay. So what is the next implication? This is connected with what I said, that working age population is very important. Now we connect it to immigration. So what is happening in Europe is they are trying to stop immigration now. Earlier, if they had an unmet demand for labor or skills, they would allow people in. Amazingly, the US, which is built on immigration, is doing the same now. Some people think it's a temporary thing. I don't. I think there's anti-immigration sentiment is going to keep on growing in all those countries. Remember, the red ones, they need immigrants, but they are not going to allow them. So what will happen? And this is the story for the next 20 years, which you should remember. I hope you'll remember and say, oh yeah, Dr. Virmani told me this 10 years ago when I'm gone. Okay, so what is going to happen is, already business services are traded across the world. So that is not a problem which I have to address. You know, businesses, the fastest growing segments are certain, all our businesses, our shares are rising. So our private sector is doing fine. Remember the organization I gave you? Government's role, private sector role. The private sector is doing quite well on those high-skill business things. What I am concerned about is that's going to happen in education, in health, in everything else. What is going to happen is called unbundling. Okay? So unbundling of manufacturers, which is where China gained. Remember that share rising. What unbundling meant was that earlier a shoe would be made from leather to final product in one factory, in one country. Then they divided these portions into things and said, okay, this thing is better located in China, or this thing is better located in Thailand, and things used to move. Okay, that is unbundling. Same thing is going to happen in social services. You know, I was in OECD about 9 months ago, and I was surprised, even though I shouldn't have been. That's after that I made this table which I showed you. They don't have enough people. The government, they advertise for people. They cannot get enough people. How do you solve it? Immigration or unbundling? How unbundling? For example, if you have to process a visa, I'm just giving you that example which everybody knows. All the processing except the final stage could be done in India. So they will have to unbundle all their services. And my view is that India can and must be the place where they locate. That is the huge opportunity. Okay? So that is the unbundling which will happen. So the slogan we have now, I don't know if somebody else has used it earlier, is skill for India, skill for the world. For this we need 24/7 connectivity to internet. This is something I've been saying which unfortunately my colleagues, I wasn't in government, I've just been 15 months, were not appreciating. We have to connect every citizen of India. That is the world. It's going to be in the future. Domestic semi-skilled. Here there's a whole lot of things, but I want to tell you a very simple thing. You know, when we think of skills, most people think AI. When I think of skills, I don't do that. Okay, I think where is the mismatch? Remember what I said about the rate of growth of the workers, the regular workers? In my view, this is the problem of skills. Okay, skilling is not happening properly, or wherever it's happening, it's not matching. Okay, you have to create the demand and the supply together, otherwise the demand disappears. Okay, if there's somebody, for example, one company, large construction company, told me there are 100,000, which is 1 lakh, openings for construction workers. They cannot find them. This was about a year or two ago. Okay, so as far as you are concerned, there's no job because you don't have the construction skills, or you're not interested in it. So you have to match. You have to have the skills, and then you have to match them. You have to have the demand and the supply at the same time, otherwise it's wasted. Okay? You understand middle level skills? It's a difficult concept. Let me give you one example. You think of a plumber or electrician, घर में आता है, right? You call, वो बिजली कुछ खराब हो गया है, line खराब हो गई है, right? Or plumber, something is leaking. Okay? Electrician, plumber, carpenter, कील ठोकना है. This construction company needs plumbers and electricians, but not the kind we have at home. Why? What is a plumber? The name is something else. They don't call them plumbers. They have to fit pipes, chemical pipes. They are building chemical plants. Okay? Oh, and things like that. So it's a whole level of skill, but these are all middle skills. I call them middle skills rather than high-end, AI or all that sort of stuff. So those skills have to be created, okay? There are lots of jobs there. There will be. Okay, next. I can give you stories, but I'm going to now speed up a bit. So here is, so I've told you about the global and the domestic, right? Now let me very quickly go through the digital part, which is again, in my view, going to be a very important part of it. And don't get scared, because the point here is, again, I'm thinking it's not you that it will replace. It is the, in a rural area, there are schools where one teacher is teaching 6 different classes. Okay, what I am thinking of is how to empower that person to actually do a good job in each of those 6 classes, and it's going to be digital. Okay, it is going to be digital access. So the digital systems will provide the type of material, the type of experience for each of these classes which that one teacher can use. That is my objective, and it will happen. Okay, so what is this innovation inclusion? You heard of the financial sector. I'm not going to go into that. UPI, I don't know, just for my information, how many of you use UPI? It's for banking transaction. Okay, good, excellent. I don't use it still, but that's good you got, because I'm still old fogey. but I sell it in the sense of okay, so one is the scalability problem, right? If like in the 6th class you need a science teacher, right, but not available in the village, so what do? You connect. You can connect to the science teacher who is in the nearest district town. I'm just giving you a simplistic example. There are more complicated ways to do it, but just for your thing. So that one good teacher can teach 100 villages, because it can all be done at the same time, and there's a teacher there who's explaining. Okay, so these hybrid systems will develop. They are very important. We are in the process. I can give you an example, but I'm not going to unless you want. Diksha, it's an amazing program. It's the PPP. The government encouraged the NGO to build it, and it is spreading in the states. Okay, I will tell you, because otherwise you're going to sleep. So okay, what is this Diksha program? So what it is that every school textbook has a barcode. And you heard of that? Of the Diksha program? Okay, then I won't waste your time. But I'll tell you the survey which was done, which you may not have heard of. They did a survey, and 2 stories from the survey. One was they found a peak before Monday. So on the weekend, the usage of that program, they could monitor. Okay, that goes up like this. Okay, and then there was another peak. I've forgotten that, but I'll just tell you about the first one. So what was happening? Bright girls, I use the word girls now because the example he gave was girls. I don't know personally. The guy came and briefed me. They were reading up the thing before going to school on Monday. And then what happened? In some places, they were asking questions which the teacher could not answer. Remember, this is all over the country. It's not IP. It's like in the rural area or anywhere. That's where it's being used. And then the teacher started reading it. That's what you actually want. You know, all this, the teacher's performance can go up by understanding, because she can understand much better. It's not just the bright student. The bright student maybe 10%. What about the rest 90%? That is where the teacher actually role will be. So the role of the teacher will change. Okay? So that is one. So scalability problem will be solved by this. And the other one is information. Remember what I said, we worry about information? You have to get the right information to the right people at the right time. Not you again, that is my responsibility. Now, people say, you know, you must be thinking, Google pe jao. How many of you use Google for information? Okay, pretty good, right? So you and I can do that. Every time I have a question, I just go to Google. But there are many people in other parts of the country who don't have a clue. And I'll give you another thing which may interest you. The stories are always better than all this dry facts. So, 15 months ago or whenever, I joined normally you ask, so I requested a courtesy call on the President of India. And I generally go and try to draw. I mean, that's part of my job. Again, your principal mentioned what is happening on the ground. That's what I do all the time. I try to find out from people who are working on the ground what is happening. So I went round and round, and then she opened up. She said, yeah, you know, I've just had a case in Assam, where after a lot of struggle, government has given pension to the tea workers, who are mostly women. And she said, I heard of a story where these poor women got whatever, 3 lakhs, 5 lakhs, is a huge thing for them. Okay, this is out in the boondocks, as we used to call them, in the tea estate, hilly area, which I actually visited, by the way. So, what happened? They didn't know what to do with the money. So some touts, some fraudsters said, okay, we will help you deposit it in the bank, and disappeared with the money. What's the problem? The right information to the right people at the right time. That's my job, because nobody else will think of it. Okay? So let's end. So what we are, just briefly, this is a projection. You know, people have, again, here I say this is my view, because there are 10 different people will give you 10 different numbers, okay? These are my numbers, and there are 4 projections here. GDP growth of 5.9, 6.4 and 6.9. I won't tell you why this uneven thing rather than 6.5. It has a basis, because I took individual numbers and then averaged them, okay? They are, behind it is numbers, and then this is the average I'm showing you on top. So in the middle, look at the middle one. What I've been telling you, the upper middle income and high income country, then those things come from this projection. So if we grow, in my view, at 6.4, we will become upper middle income country in 2031. The exact year doesn't matter. You know, it can be 32, it can be a little bit here and there. Long-term projections are never think of it as total number. It's always approximate. Okay, and 2047. But this is the part which I actually want to show you, which people again don't understand. So if you're going to be one up on your colleagues from Miranda House and others, by the way, I've given this talk there also, but if you understand it, you will be better off. So what is it I've done? I say, okay, we are going to get to upper middle income and higher income, and where are we now? So I've taken every social indicator which is available globally, because I'm comparing India with other countries. And what I have done is, here I am showing you life expectancy. I'm just going to show you one graph, but the concept is the important thing. Okay? So here I've got life expectancy on the y-axis. I'm sure you all done econometrics and put and this is per capita GDP in PPP. The only way to compare the welfare of countries is in PPP. Okay, that's another subject. If you don't understand and you want to be up on it, you should try and read up if you argue with people, because everything else for welfare is wrong. Okay, current dollars is nonsense. It does not tell you relative welfare. Welfare, remember, size of the economy, yes, Okay, you can compare size of economy in different ways, which have different validity. There's no problem with that. Okay, so here we have India. You see that red dot there? It shows that we are below the line. Okay, that means we are at a certain per capita income, and we are not meeting the standard of that. That is what that regression line shows you. Okay. And then, oh gosh, the dots are missing. Okay, that should have the two other dots where you become a UMIC and a upper middle, and I've given you the number. So you are below the line, 67.2 years, and you have to get to, in 31, at 71, etc. Right? So we use this graph to say where we are and where we want to go, and one can do that in every social indicator. Okay. In a month or so, and that is the way to look at it. Now you might think this is useless, I'm going to end, but behind it then I say, okay, let me go and look at where the problem is. Let me look at male and female life expectancy. So then I immediately identify that actually the problem is coming from female life expectancy. So I ask the next question, do I have data to show what that problem is? So the only data I find internationally is mortality, what is called adult mortality. Infant mortality by both genders, adult mortality male, female. And the problem is coming in, again, in female mortality rates. They are too high. Then you can think, this is where I would involve you, but I'm going to end now. And there can be further discussion. I was going to talk about the skill thing I moved. I knew I would run out of time. So, this is just a summary of what I have told you, but the bottom line is that we can become a high income country in 25 years if we grow at 6.5% per annum, in my view. There will be people who tell you it has to be 7%, 8%. I don't know how they are getting these numbers. I have a very specific methodology which may be wrong, we can discuss it, but it's very clear. What I do is I take the numbers from World Bank, translate that, I find the countries which are just crossed the line, take their per capita GDP, real PPP. As I said, you cannot compare what PPP without PPP. And then I make the projection and say, okay, when will we have the same per capita GDP level? That is my methodology. Anyway, let me stop, and if there's time, we can have questions. Thank you.